2.
You're now watching two old farts making noises. Welcome to Canadian Art Today with your host, Paul Constable.
Here we go.
There we go. Yeah.
We need to get David. I can't wait till the time changes. When David comes back, nothing screws up. So,
Yeah, everybody thinks that we are the two old farts, but actually,
I know, right there. There's David. And for the people that watch our other shows, they know who David is or watch some of these. So, yeah, when the time changes in a couple of months, it'll be back to a normal time. And David will be here doing the buttons.
it's probably in September sometime. I think there's
Thank God.
third
I
week,
think
of,
so.
maybe.
Woo-hoo!
Is he on a different time change than we are?
He's in a different
Oh.
time, no matter where we are. It doesn't matter. But yeah, I think they didn't. I don't know if they changed or they didn't change, but I know that when we used to do it at 9 a.m. our time, we were on the same time chain, which is good for him. And then when you changed, all of a sudden, our 9 a.m. for you was like 3 in the morning and something for him. And I was like, we have to wait. So there's a 6-month period where they're stuck with just me, and then they'll be stuck with all of us in another couple months.
Yeah, we
So
don't change at all. We just stay the same year round. So that's.
Now you're Canada. What are you going to change? I mean, you know how it goes.
Well, so. We're in that belt where the cows get up at the same time by the sun. They don't care if it's 6 or 6. Anyway,
totally get it.
That sounds good. Yeah, we got a really interesting artist today.
Cool.
Roberta Murray, and she's a multidisciplinary artist, illustrator, painter, quite accomplished person, member of the Society of Alberta Artists, as well as the member of the. Actually, she's a juried member of the Federation of Canadian Artists, which is across the country. So that's quite a claim to have that. And we'll go through some of her works. She's an amazing painter and figurative and landscape. And we can talk a little bit about how she incorporates that into making a living.
Right. And don't forget, she got the painting of the dog. So we have to, I don't know if you have one of those, but we have to talk about that as well.
We didn't put the dog on, but it's when you go to her website, it'll be the first image you see. So you
can I tell you, when I went there to read about her today, I looked at that painting, I just smiled. Like, that's just like every dog I've ever had. That's perfect. It was very pretty.
That one. It wasn't part of the selection list for our talk.
That's okay. We still like her. And so it's all right. So there you go. Yeah. So, well, let's bring her in. And I'm going to disappear. Roberta, welcome to the show. Enjoy. Paul, Roberta, have a great show. I'll see you guys when you're done.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Yeah, Stephen's right. The dog is amazing. We should have put that one in the clip file that we had here. But today, well, maybe we'll have you back another time once you do. You're complicated. You got a lot of diversity, I guess I'll call it, in the work that you do. So we'll talk a little bit about that today. Excuse me. So well, just backing up a little bit. So you do what kind of work do you do, and what do you do it for? Like, is there for yourself? Is it for shows? Is it for an industry that you like, or to work towards?
First and foremost, for myself.
Mm-hmm.
So mostly oil paintings, but I think I'm kind of an explorer with art, and I like to try everything.
Yeah.
You know, I do charcoal drawings, and I've worked with watercolor, and every now and then I dabble into acrylics and then realize that I hate them. And so oil is my mainstay.
Yeah, I can see that in your work. Is it on canvas mostly, or paper, or?
No, I actually hate canvas. It's mostly board and paper.
Yeah. No, that's I've always, as I was an illustrator, I always like working on an illustration board, the nice heavy illustration board with the fine tooth on it. It was always the premium thing to have. And it would take everything, watercolor or oils or whatever was nice. Do you gesso any of that, or do you just?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, to preserve them. Yeah.
And I like the boards and paper because they're a drier surface, and it seems to, like, the paint will kind of glob on there. And so it sort of forces me to use a thicker paint and those strokes.
Well, I found that even in oils, though, you can glaze nicely with. You can use the white like a watercolor. You can use it a little bit like a watercolor, where you use the white of your paper to help you out to get you going. Right, you can see where you're going and some things. But I know people with canvas like to work on, say, a red or a sienna ground. They'll paint a sienna down, and they'll work basically on top of that and let some of that see through
Yeah.
and it works depending what
And
they're doing.
do
Yeah.
I often do a tone the
Yeah. So I'm just, we're looking at the first image here. I don't know. We'll slide one. Oh, so everybody I think Steven's going to have to help us here. There we go. Get your name up there anyway. So this, I'll just even talk about, in your title slide here. Um, these have an old world feel to them. I mean, this feels like a Delacroix drawing, or some fine aging. I guess an aged drawing style. I guess is uh,
it is.
yeah.
It,
Dude,
so I have a background in photography, and I had a special interest in, they were called the pictorialists of the late 1800s, early 1900s. And I have incorporated a lot of their images into my work. And this is actually one of the pictorialist photography by Alfred Stieglitz.
okay,
It's just a charcoal drawing of his
that's
photograph.
his work. Yeah, just
Yeah,
I like how the background goes into the dress, and there's this there's a looseness to it, but there's a in and an out that it's got kind of a rather than depicting a background separate from the skirt, it kind of includes the figure into the background of the piece of the paper. It's a beautiful, sensitive little drawing, and I really like that. I was just wondering, like you said, the influences that I was just going to ask one of the questions I was going to ask you about your influences.
yeah.
So,
The pictorialists are a big one, and I'm stepping into that more again.
mhm.
Do some oil paintings of some of the photographs.
Do you stay?
Um,
Do you usually stay in the grayscale, black and white scale if there are black and white images that you're working from, or do you add color to them?
no, I will color them.
Hmm.
Um, I do both.
Yeah.
Like the one painting that I just finished the other day was I tried making a homemade oil paint with charcoal powder and oil, and so that painting that I had done with that is a monotone.
Yeah. Yeah. You grind out. You ground all the charcoal in, and what did you use as a binder when you made your
I
oil?
I used a walnut oil.
Walnut oil as your binder. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. And they work good. It had to give you a nice.
it did. It was surprising.
Yeah.
And I was worried that with just the charcoal and oil, that it was going to take a long time to dry, but it didn't.
And did you just do that on your same paper structure that you normally do, or board? Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
that's something for people to try. I mean, there's lots of things. We're making ink from old tea, from the
Mhm.
tannic acid in tea, and you can soak it, and there's some things you can add to it. You can make your own ink, and it takes quite a bit to get it dark enough, but it's kind of a challenge. We were at a workshop one time when we actually made quill pens. From one lady brought a bunch of goose feathers,
Oh
and we
yeah.
made quill pens in ink. So it was a nice little workshop. It was just something fun to try something different. Uh,
Hmm.
Rather than it's quite easy just to buy stuff, but when you can make something of your own, you think, oh, that's kind of cool. Yeah, it's kind
Yeah.
of. So we're just going to go through a series of your paintings here, and they're landscapes, and they're gorgeous. Um, your inspirations, where do they come from for these pieces?
They can come from anywhere.
Yeah,
Sitting there and watching a movie, and you get a scene will pass through, and you think, oh, that would make a great painting.
yeah. Do you have sketchbook kind of
Poetry,
thing with you?
poetry. I did a series of photographs that were inspired by poetry from my husband's great times too I think, grandfather. He was a poet, and so I had done a whole series of paintings based on that. And this would be one of the paintings that was inspired by one of his poems.
Wow. Yeah, it feels very Robert Frosty, the feeling of this one.
Mhm.
So the inclusion of figures, is that kind of a key thing that you like doing now with landscape and adding a figure in with the landscape?
I do, because I want to do more than just show the landscape. I want it to have a bit of a story behind it. And I
Hmm.
want it to be, not necessarily a specific story, but something that the viewer can interpret. And,
Maybe
maybe it reminds them of something of their past or a time or a feeling, whatever.
I think we try to do that in all our work, whether there's figures or not. You try to include things that um, hook that viewer a little bit, because that's why they buy a lot. They
Mhm.
see something either of themselves in the work or a remembrance, or maybe it's just color, the color palette they like that they were looking for. Who knows really what is it's as diverse, as your audience, like uh,
Mhm.
why you buy a piece of work, right? It's complicated. It's not an easy thing. And
Right.
so do you just paint paintings on demand, like you as you do them, and then they're presented? And do you have a shows, regular shows or regular showings with a group?
I don't. As part of the Federation of Canadian Artists, I do a lot of their exhibitions in Vancouver.
Hmm.
Other than that, I have two galleries that I show through Art Interiors in Toronto and Gus Gallery in Waterton.
Hmm. Well,
And
that's
that's
good.
about,
Yeah.
I don't, I'm a terrible introvert, so I don't like doing art shows. And
So they're mostly just group shows that you're part of, or they're just part of the gallery artists that they show your work on a regular basis. Yeah. Well, that's good. It's it winter scenes. I mean, it's one of those things. Like, are they a hot item, like a winter scene, or are people like more of our other three seasons that we have, other than construction? Do we have the winter scenes?
I haven't done a lot of winter scenes. The ones I have done have all sold well. So, but the summer and other seasons sell well too.
Yeah.
I personally don't really like doing too many winter scenes because I don't like winter.
It's tough to do a warm winter scene. Like,
Yeah.
you're dealing with some different grays that are in the warm scale, and the lighting is key to everything, like that warm light. And it's probably more like a March is more pleasing to a lot of people, that
Mhm.
there's hope coming.
Yeah.
A little bit. And we do have a long winter some years, and occasionally we get some nice winters that are moderate, but it's still colder than 20 above, and we just have
Yeah.
to bear with that. Maybe by then the smoke will all be gone, and we
Well,
can,
that'll be the one upside to winter this year.
yeah, really it will be. And so here's another one. So they get, I guess, you know, is is the impressionist a big part of what you like, the impressionist style of painting?
It
Yeah,
is.
yeah.
Yeah.
There's
I
that.
like the Dutch and Soviet Impressionists, the French, of course, but
Yeah,
all,
I can see that old world in you a little bit. Like, you like that. Like, yeah, the
yeah,
the
very much.
Van Dykes of the world, right? There's some there's some amazing Dutch painters.
Mhm.
Yeah, they've mastered and figured out an awful lot of things. But there's beautiful light in this one, and it's abstract in a way. I really like this one. It's not so definitive of that type of tree, that type of sunlight, right? But you still get a feeling. It's I guess it's a scratchy feeling. It just has that. It's there, and it's almost like spontaneous. And
Mhm.
so, was any of this with a knife or mostly brush?
Probably both.
Yeah,
I do use palette knife quite often in my work.
yeah.
Uh,
Well, how big would this piece be about?
that piece is 8 by 10.
Yeah, okay, so in the smaller, are they on and they're on a panel or a
That's
board?
yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. And
Well, they're
it was
not.
we had been in Jasper and it had been a cloudy, rainy, gloomy day, and we came around a corner and the sun popped out and
Stop the car.
the
Yeah.
car. Yeah.
Well, I have that happen to me. My wife, I feel guilty after a while, but I have to stop and do something. My wife will sit there and do her little knitting for a little bit, or crocheting that she's got, and I'll go and try and get a shot of something. But mostly, unless I'm motivated to plein air painting or something, it's usually a snapshot that you've got to, or a
Mhm.
quick sketch, but it's rare. It's just hard to stop on the highway, or you just it's
Yeah.
dangerous as well, and you've got to be careful what you're doing. But this is a lovely, it's a lovely little piece. I mean, there's a great remembrance to these kind of things, and I've seen a lot of lake paintings. There's a lot out there, and how do you make yours unique to what you're doing? And everybody feels they need to reflect everything in the water, which drives
Mhm.
me nuts, because it's not like that. You don't need to turn the painting upside down and see exactly what was right side up, and because your eye really does choose what it wants to look at, whether it's the water or, and that's what I really like about this piece. There is a reflection in there, but it's not dominated by reflecting the three trees that are sticking above the dark forest part there in shadow. And but those three trees are key to the painting because they're catching the light.
Mhm.
So I like how you did that. It's about contrast a lot of times, and our artists need to really, sometimes you have to look at that a little bit. How do I make something out of like you said, go around the corner and the sun's there? How do you make something out of a piece that was ho hum, but maybe a couple of minutes ago until the sun popped out? And like you said, stop the car.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'm glad your husband let you do that, because it worked well. And the paintings like this, like you said, it's cloudy, raining. It can be depressing a little bit too, right? You got to be somewhat motivated as an artist to want to stop and do it, and quickly find that magic. And
Mhm.
you have that ability to. I guess that's from experience, right? You've been doing a lot of it for a long time, so it's good to see those things.
Thank you.
Yeah. Can you talk about this one a little bit? The kind of where this one might have originated from? And you got a figure with an umbrella and a
So I
beautiful.
had talked about the pictorialist photography,
Mhm.
uh, and I had done a lot of that work myself. And this was actually one of the photographs that I had done, and it was with a homemade camera or a homemade lens.
Oh, nice.
And so the photograph is quite blurry. And I thought, okay, can I turn this into a painting? And that's the result of that. And it's from Vancouver in the spring during the cherry
Yeah,
blossom
yeah, yeah,
season.
yeah. Working from either black and white photos or off out of focus images can make you see other things.
Hmm.
Yeah, there's a nice little magic in this. It feels like a little very romantic painting in it, and I think the figure works well. Um, it's nicely designed. I think a lot of it comes down to design,
Yeah.
scale and design. And I think, is that why I guess some of the figure is put in there for scale as well? Like,
Um, yeah, I guess. Well, the figure was sort of the focus of that.
mhm.
Uh, and then also with the title, Clouds Will Return. So with the umbrella,
Yeah,
it had been a rainy day.
yeah. No, and it's about storytelling. I mean, really, a lot of our work is, as an artist, you are telling stories in a sense. Whether they're for somebody else or just for yourself. Um,
Visual poetry.
yeah, yeah. I haven't painted from poetry, but I can see how that would. I think a lot of artists paint with music in the background, and I've always wondered whether the choice of music is influencing what they paint
Yeah.
as well. Do you have music in the background too when you paint a little bit sometimes?
Sometimes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'm listening to podcasts or
Yeah.
sometimes nothing at all.
Yeah. No, it's we have great choice and selection to do a lot of different things for motivation, like keep us motivated in how we produce our work and to keep going. Because if you're just working by yourself in the studio all by yourself all the time, and I won't say it's lonely, but I'm just saying we have a lonely profession. You know, you really you lock yourself down and you get your ideas down, and you can be quite focused in one way and not see what's going on in the rest of the world for a while, which I guess is kind of good. This last few years have been kind of nice to lock down and
Yeah.
yeah, get some work done. Yeah.
And if I'm listening to something in the studio, it's usually to pull my concentration away from the painting, because I find I do better work if I'm not too focused on what I'm doing.
Oh, really? Okay. Yeah. So do you work with flat brushes or pointed brushes, or what kinds of things do you use? To a little bit of everything? Or,
I do like flats,
yeah.
but I do use filberts, rounds, but I would say largely flats.
Yeah. No, it's I can see some of those areas where you can, we look for certain brush strokes and artists done it, you can switch it up. You don't have to use the same brush all the time. But
Hmm.
this one I love the grays in this piece. It does feel rainy but warm still, right? It still has that. There's a warmth and a glow in this piece, and I think um, you've captured that nicely. I think there's this. I think that yellow slickers in a rain is really quite a it's quite a nice piece. The so you I guess you're looking at a real like I guess it's almost a 2-point perspective a little bit. You got diminishing figures on going left and right a little bit, but there's nothing going on other than that. You could be walking out on the flats of the ocean or the lake, and it's there's no buildings or anything, so
Hmm.
quite a
Up to
yeah,
you to figure out what's going on.
it is, yeah, and it is somewhat minimalist, which is it's kind of neat. Yet there's 6 figures in there. Like it's like uh, that's quite amazing to be able to pull that kind of thing off, where you have complicated imagery, but it's still in a minimalist plane, right?
Hmm.
It's got a. Yeah, we'll go through a couple.
This was another piece that was inspired by the poetry of my husband's great grandfather.
It's nice when you get poetry from your family. It's not just go pull a book off the shelf in the library. It's known
Hmm.
poetry, Robert Burns or whatever, and try to depict something from that. But if you've got poetry within your family, it's just another really nice connection to personalize your work. I guess that's the word, personalize it.
Hmm.
It's a nice touch. Um, and some of that would have been really good for you, like to go and have a show and have the poetry alongside some of the work that was being produced, so people could see that other side to the work, and maybe they could see another edge to it, right? Another vision. More yours is visual. There's other one be audio, right? Somebody speaking or reading it. So it'd be
Hmm.
kind of a nice way to diversify what you're doing. Like you got to come out of your shell. You got to just. So what is your work schedule like when you do your work? Like, do you have a 9 to 5 thing, or do you work midnights, or do you how does that work?
I am. I don't have a schedule, so mostly I'm a daytime painter. Um, but my husband's retired. We have dog walking to do every day, and so it varies day to day when
Yeah,
I'm down here. I do love it when I get a day and I can spend the entire day in the studio,
yeah,
but I try, 2 or 3 hours
yeah.
most days.
That's good. No, good to have a schedule like that. My studio's a mess. I haven't been here. I've been in my other studio up north for the summer, but I work from one junkie studio to the other one relative to the season. So Yeah, no, this is a lovely piece. Go on here. I wish we should have pulled a few other images from your website, but I think um, you do mention like this one feels very Dutch, like you
Yeah.
said, and I see the not the style so much as the imagery of like the Van Gogh or uh, there's a little bit of Monet in there. There's a little bit, because they did paint on the coast quite a bit. The hunch figure is very Dutch
Mm.
in style, and um, yeah, no, it's again how large a panel is this one? About
Uh, that one I think is 11 by 14.
so a little. It's a bigger, yeah, it's a bigger panel.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're in Western Canada. Um, and our light's a little different than what you're painting here. So where does the influences of this light come from? Again, is this from imagery from previously painted works from masters of some kind, or
This particular painting is a conglomerate of a whole bunch of different images,
Mhm.
and I spend a lot of time trying to find those old, again, the pictorialist photographs. And
So that's what you like to work from, not so much as someone else's painting, but you're looking for photos, older photos that you could work from uh,
Mhm.
for your own vision and what you're doing. Uh, Part of it is artists are always looking for where do their source of image come from. I mean, the internet now is huge. There's a ton of everything out there, but how do you pull imagery from an archive somewhere and make it your own, right? And especially when you've got a vision in your mind, what you want to do, right? So
Mhm.
yeah,
Yeah.
and
Pulling several photographs and you use a figure from this one and a figure from that one, and the landscape from here.
okay.
That's one of the ways that you take those images and make it your own.
Mhm. So you consider this an illustration more than a painting, or can you tell us the difference between an illustration and a painting, like for yourself?
Well, for me personally, my illustrations are digital work,
Okay,
so this is painting
yeah.
for
So
me.
the digital work would come from, say, photography that you did as well, and combining it with something. Is that what you do?
Yeah,
Yeah. So
or just like drawing on the computer.
on the computer, just digitally drawing.
Yeah.
So yeah, no. I've seen a couple of your drawings, and there was a couple of. I guess again, we're going to encourage people to go to the website to look at them. They have a very scratchy Beatrix Potter look about them.
Mm.
The rabbit kind of look. And I love that. And I wish I would have pulled some of those for our presentation, but they had a feeling of spontaneity. Like you could just do it on the spot, scratch, 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 and move on because
And some of
people.
those are done with pen and ink,
Yeah, yeah.
and then later brought in and colored.
So do you do any etching at all or anything like that or any printmaking?
I have,
Yeah,
but not a lot.
yeah. The one of the nice ways I used to try to work up things using monoprinting,
Mhm.
because you can do quite a few in a very short time in the morning to decide color palette, and they create beautiful little pieces of work in themselves, and you just press and rub them onto paper even, and they have a really nice feeling. Yeah.
I haven't tried that yet, but
It is
that,
it's yeah, it's a style that, um, you'll get hooked on it. It's what I love doing monoprints, and you don't need a great big press to do them unless you're working on larger pieces of work. It's the hand rubbing of you gotta hand rub the back of the paper so you basically paint your image onto a Lexan or a piece of plastic or glass, and just try not to get too much ink on it or paint because it'll squish on you. But it's kind of a learned thing. But you could even do a drawing. Warhol used to do his fashion stuff on two pieces of paper where he'd do the ink on one and then quickly turn it over and rub it down onto the other one and then peel it off, and the one that he transferred it onto, it would break the line up. Like he'd just
mm,
do a line like ink line, and that's how he developed his style of his work. And it was beautiful because the line wasn't solid; it broke in and out and just did a random thing. And he made a lot of money as a graphic designer in the day, and was in big demand by the fashion industry in New York. So now these two are, I put these two together because I mean, I feel these very Degas-like, these pieces, and I know these images do exist in, like you said, in your archive as photos, or there's all kinds of things. Um, can you respond to one on the left to start with, the Ballet Blanc?
Yeah, no, you've kind of caught me in a spot because I don't actually remember where this photograph or this one came from. My cousin's daughter was doing ballet, and I kind of think this might have been one of her.
Wow, that's nice.
But I'm not positive of that.
Mhm. Yeah. So you do some of your own photography then
I
as well?
do.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's yeah. And the one on the right, the fresh laundry.
That was from uh, a set of photographs that had come about from a workshop that I had done, and we had been given access to some photographs of
Yeah.
models.
Yeah, it's just quite common to have models, and many of them, will let you photograph as well, after sessions or when you have drawing sessions. But I like, the one of the fresh laundry. The title is so unique and different. I like it. It's about the laundry. It's not about her as much, right? And she's,
Mhm.
the garment and her, and there's this relationship between the two that you've created. There's a nice. It's not just the model in a chair, right? We've seen so many of those done with a model chair, model couch, and this one is. There's a nice response, and I really love the background. The background really holds it together nicely. A little shadow, and you don't need a lot, really, if you think about it. Really, when you have a central figure that's a dominant, you need
Mhm.
to play that up a little bit, and it's a lovely little piece, and it's. I think she's a fresh model too. Like it's not overworked, and it's just kind of a nice sparkle to have.
Thank you.
And yeah,
And
the,
I'm
the
working on trying to learn the composition better, and so the background is sort of how do you draw the focus where you want it, and
there
so
is
I'm
this,
do
yeah, there is
some
this, yeah,
a
and you
little
don't
more.
have a long time, and you don't have a long time if you're doing life model. You've got, if they can hold the pose for 20 minutes, you're lucky.
Mhm.
You've got to get it all down. But if you're working from a photograph, you can manipulate, move things around a little bit, and you can adjust to what you're doing. But
Yeah,
even so, it doesn't look like it's overworked. So it just has she's fresh as well as, the title of the laundry. It's kind of yeah, no, it's nice. Just a nice little fresh piece. The, you know, the ballet girl, it's hard not, when you do them, it's hard not to emulate, I guess, Degas or other ones that have painted the ballet in prominence. Like they're everywhere, and it's hard to have your own version of it without it being seen as something. Oh, I've seen that before, and something like that. But
I'd
it's
be very happy for it to look like Degas. He is one of the biggest inspirations. So,
yeah,
I don't copy his work exactly, but if I can create that same feeling that his work has, I'd be thrilled.
yeah. No, there was a magic in, but I think there's a dedication to that where he committed himself for a length of time to go actually to the ballet in the background and paint and draw. And an artist needs to make those commitments. Sometimes the local ballets will let you come in for a session or do some different things in conjunction with them.
Well, that's easier said than done because I've tried that.
Yeah. And that worked out okay?
No, it didn't. No, and I have tried it like the local ballet school, and I have tried for like the Calgary Ballet, and
No,
no,
you're not prominent enough, maybe.
no.
The there's an artist in town that has had that opportunity, but in a different way. But um, I don't know. Excuse me. Get all kinds of.
They probably get hundreds of requests like that, though. So
I think a lot of it is probably about the young models that are the young dancers more than anything. It's probably more about that. They just don't want as a distraction to what they're doing.
yeah,
But if you're a Monet or somebody of Degas of the day who is, you know, famous even in this day, they made time for you because the poster to go out and the ballet was known, and that was a popular thing that people wanted to see, and they wanted, you know, it worked both ways. But I wish they, you know, ballets and companies like that would work more with visual artists and create collaborations of such, and just have a set time to come rather than in the middle of when they're practicing or for a session. But yeah, that's about all you can do is try. You know, if you don't ask, you don't get.
right.
And how else do you get fresh ideas, right? And as an artist, you see something like you said on TV and says, well, how do I emulate that? Right? How can I got a speeding racing car, and I think that'd be a great image. Well, where do you go to find speeding racing cars to get your image? Or I think I saw online you had one of a couple of airplanes at an air show. Uh, how did you incorporate that? Right? Did you just go to an air show and take photos?
I went to the show and took photos. Yeah.
Yeah. So but it's about opportunity, right? So if you had the opportunity to go that and you've got the idea, you say, okay, I gotta schedule my day so I can go and do that. Yeah. So that's yeah. I think that.
And you know, you had mentioned like the old world to some of my images, and we spend a lot of time going to heritage sites, you know, like Fort Steele and Heritage Park and the Ukrainian Cultural Center.
Right.
We spend a lot of time going to those kind of places to get images that suit that time frame that I want to be painting.
Yeah. Maybe you're from a different time zone. Maybe you're out by 100 years. Is that I've had other artists tell me that. They say sometimes they're not of this century, and I said, oh, that's kind of cool. But they like to paint different things. I had one cowboy artist that just loved to paint old dusty cowboys, and he said, you're 100 years out of out of keeping. But
yeah.
Again, this one feels very, you know, Dutch-like, you know, in the I guess it's the moody, it's the light in the mood. And I mean, you got figures standing in a field, right? And then, so where would something like this be in your mind? Is it where it came from? Like, where would this image come from? Doesn't look Western Canadian, for instance.
Well, it actually is.
Okay.
Sort of. The field was, we used to live in the country. That was a spring flooded field. And another different photograph of the sky. The middle part was made up, the figures made up.
Yeah. Yeah. So do you have where else do these go? Like, where else would people see these works? Possibly.
Well, Vancouver, Toronto, here in Alberta.
Yeah. Okay.
Online.
Do you sell from your studio at all, or mostly just through the galleries?
Mostly from the galleries. I do sell off of my website.
Off your website, and I can see that because the works are beautiful, and they're very representational of what they would get. I think I think it's beautiful, beautiful pieces. So you said you sketched on location. Do you do plein air stuff a little bit?
I have done plein air. I don't actually like plein air.
Yeah. Is it the bugs or the wind and the all the stuff that go with it?
It's everything, and needing a bathroom, and yeah, the wind,
Yeah.
the bugs, the sun. I burn in like 2 minutes, so
Yeah, it's yeah. People don't understand that plein air is there's more to it than just painting. There's a lot of prep to it. Uh,
mhm,
and seasonally as well as location. If you're in Vancouver, it's different. You gotta,
yeah.
for the weather, you gotta deal with rain and wind and stuff. And prairies, it's always wind. Uh,
Mhm,
and there's usually the occasional day that is beautiful, and it's usually hot, and you get sunscreen and hats, and
mhm,
half the stuff you drag out you don't use, like it just sits there waiting for the weather that is it changes. So I find a lot of and trying to paint large is almost impossible in some conditions. It's just you become a sailboat, you're a sail, a kite, I guess is the word. Uh,
yeah.
yeah, and you got to
Well,
push. You end up
trying to
pushing.
being able to stop at the exact spot that you want to paint, it isn't always possible.
Yeah, you still have to invent because light changes. If you're painting any length of time, the light changes dramatically from say morning to afternoon, and you're painting one spot. You have to pretty much determine the light direction and pattern and what you're going to do when you start because it'll be different by the afternoon. You'll never finish your painting. it'll
No,
turn it'll turn to black at the end if you stay in the one spot. But
and I'm not a fast painter, so and I don't like being rushed.
yeah, yeah.
I
Sometimes you can feel a little rushed, but I think it's sort of like if you go to a life drawing session, it's sort of gesture drawing in a
mhm,
way and get the because the figure moves a little bit and you have to get the gesture down of. And I think the same thing goes for those other painting moments. You got to get the light, the scale, what you want to get down, and then you can fill it in and work on it. But um, buildings are really tough because the light changes and shadows change dramatically
mhm,
on a building structure, um, more so than if you're just painting a field.
yeah,
And the light can move around a little bit and you'll be fine. But anything that all of a sudden the shadow just keeps moving on your building and you kind of you have to nail that down pretty quick. But
mhm,
this painting has a really it has a lush feeling. I've been looking at this for a part of a day or so, and the layers and the mud, you can feel the wetness in that field. Yeah, you really can. And like I said, I didn't know it would be the prairies, but it could be. It's so dry here most of the time, but
yeah,
it could be anywhere in the world, like this painting. Like that's a
mhm,
universal. That's the nice thing about what you're doing a little bit. It's you're searching for that universality in an image, and
yeah,
it's tough to explain to someone how what universality is, and is that what you should be seeking. And most of them will seek to paint a local depiction of something, right? That tree
yeah,
that everybody knows what that building is or that river scene, and they want to take a remembrance specific of that. But your work has it's moved the other way a little bit. It's and that's what I really like about your work. When you see a lot of this work, you see this style here, but you have a number of styles that you work. Um, and we haven't gone through any of that, but maybe we'll come back and do something on that. You have a flat pattern style, which is very Art Deco. People walking dogs kind of a feeling, and people can see a lot of this on Roberta's website. Uh, Beautiful things. Go see the dog picture on the homepage. It's got to definitely see that. I had to throw this in. As I was trying to allude to some of the things. Roberta's really well known. My goodness, he's really well known. Um, So they just choose some paintings. Some occasionally your work shows up on a cover. It makes the cover of some yeah. So it's
Yeah.
amazing that artists can do that. Uh, you're in a sector, people find you and they love your work, and you can make a little bit of income from doing royalties in a royalty situation, right? Beautiful. Publishers they love looking for a great selection of things. Yeah.
Well, like the book cover industry, it runs the gamut from, paintings, photographs, illustrations, graphic design, you name it.
Yeah. I remember sort of in the day with Time magazine, I think they used to take 3 to 5 artists and photographers would be hired for each week edition. And they give you a kind of a kill fee. Everybody would get a minimum fee for just producing a piece of work. And it was like, you had like almost, because it's spontaneous stuff that was happening, you had a day or two to produce a cover, and they would choose either a painting or a photograph or whatever. One of the 5 would make the cover. And it's just like, oh my God, like talk about pressure, right?
Yeah.
But they pay well. They would pay well for doing covers for magazines because it was a weekly.
Mm-hmm.
And but it's nice to see that an artist's work can be appreciated in another manner. You don't just have to be paintings on a wall. You can do work for different industries, magazine industry, and they're always looking for things. Yes, you can give it away free, but don't do that. It's a That's how you starve to death.
Yeah.
And you know what? If anybody needs a cover design, look through Roberta's repertoire on her website. And it's amazing to see some of the names and the titles that you've got here. They're very accomplished writers, and it's great that they've got an accomplished artist in yourself to help them sell their story. I mean, do you end up having to read their stories when this happens, or do they just choose what they like?
It's all done through an agent.
Oh, okay.
So my
Yeah.
images go to an agency,
Yep.
and the publishers. I mean,
Kind of thumb through them.
yeah, for any given book, they might choose, 50 images, and then they narrow it down, and the process working with the author come
Yeah.
up with the image that they want to use on the cover,
Yeah. That's
and then
that's
the
great.
publisher has their in-house designers that fill in the rest, put in the
The
type,
text
and
and in the design. Yeah. No, I know as a designer, it was always nice to have to work with a nice image. Like I always liked working with an image that depicted that story a little bit, or left me a little bit of room in the sky to put some text that had to be in there anyway. Didn't want to cover up the key things. So it's nice that
Mhm.
you're able to do that is on the, I won't even say a sideline, but there's it's a way of doing work and doing what you like to do, as well as your galleries. And I said that pays the bills.
Yeah,
Yeah,
some painters have another job, and
that's right.
that's my side job.
Yeah. Well, you have to have those. And this is another lovely little image. Are those chickens that I'm looking
Yeah.
at? Okay. How's my eyesight? Little chickens. Yeah. No, it's kind of, this feels very Alberta like country in Alberta. Yeah. This one has that. Yeah. No, it's
Yeah.
lovely, lovely work, Roberta. I appreciate you taking the time to spend. We talked just very little bit about some of your work. We should have you back and talk about some other things, some of your other styles of work, and some of your portraits and your animals and some of your figures. But for now, it was great talking with you. And I
Thank
would
you.
like to
Yeah.
thank you very much for joining us. And I think Stephen will probably join us here shortly, and
Well,
we'll
thank you for having
oh,
me on.
there he is. Yeah, Roberta did an excellent, beautiful, beautiful work. Yeah, nice to see.
Thank you.
I can't hear you, Stephen.
Roberta, absolutely gorgeous. Thank you for joining us. Helps if I push the right buttons. My question is, because this is what someone's going to ask, what do your works go for from A to Z? What's the pricing of your work?
So from about 150 up.
Okay.
Mhm.
And that's Canadian, so it's about $3 US to like $15 US. Okay, good. Very happy.
Plus like $50 shipping for US.
I was gonna say, by the time you get to the US, you're at like, $400 or $500. I got that. So yes,
Yeah.
very,
Shipping
very cool.
shipping has just about destroyed our industry. It's unbelievably expensive now. It just doubled in price.
Yeah.
It's really affected artwork shipping. Yeah,
Well,
it's
we've got
Yeah.
stuff that we collect, and it comes from all over the world. So sometimes I'll be like, "Oh, by the way," and they just tell me what it is, and they tell me, and I'm like, "All right." And then what we've got with some of them that come with mega pieces that are like 3 or 4 meters by 3 or 4 meters, they're like, unframe it, send it in a tube to our framer. Tell him how you want to frame it, and he'll frame it, and it works out cheaper. Because some of the
Yeah.
paintings will cost X, and the ship it is the same price as the painting, and I'm like, "Yeah, I'm buying a small car." So we do it the other way. It seems to work sometimes. So yes, but your stuff's absolutely gorgeous. Like I said, the dog ones I loved. The other stuff is very beautiful, but the dog one just made me smile. So as long as it makes me smile, that's
we'll
what I
have
like.
to have Roberta back and talk about some of her other stuff that she does because
Oh yeah,
she's
you
very
have to.
diverse. You're very diverse, and I think it's warranted to see some of your other work. Love to see your landscape stuff, but there's a whole other side to you there. We just got to, we can talk to other
Any-
people about. Oh,
There you
it's
go.
great. Yeah.
But it was a pleasure, and everybody that's listening, don't forget to subscribe and like. And we will see Paul next week, and Roberta, we'll see you again soon, hopefully.
All right.
That's good.
Thank you.
Have a
Okay.
nice day, everybody. Cheers.
Thank
See you
you.
next Thursday.